Please take your seats because we will be starting fourth parallel session of the conference, Transition to Green Economy. I think now we have everybody here. Panelists are more or less prepared. Good. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome you to the fourth parallel session of the conference Transition to Green Economy. We'll be talking about cities, regional and local authorities and what they could do with greening the economy. But not only economy, we can talk about broader concept of green society. Speakers in this parallel session will discuss how to tackle pressing environmental but also social problems like traffic congestion, affordable and green housing, lack of public services, etc. Sometimes it's even more complicated. We are not talking only about problems, but contradictory demands or contradictory interests. Sometimes we hear that public services like housing or transport could be cheap, good, and green, but you can only pick two of them. You cannot have all three. Maybe it's not true. Maybe we can say that there are smart green technologies that would allow us to have all three qualities. I think we have a very good and distinguished panel here. One of the panelists is still missing, but I think he'll come a bit later, so I'll introduce him. I'll start in order how the panelists are written in the program. So let me welcome Ms. Sirpa Hertel, Vice Chairman of the Commission for Environment, Climate Change and Energy from the European Committee of Regions, coming from Finland. Yes. Mr. Pavel Misiga, Head of Unit Clean Water from DG Environment, European Commission. Mark Hitson, Deputy Regional Director of ICLEI Europe. Josef Knott, he'll be here, I think, in a few minutes from city of Písek, from Czech Republic. Laszlo Miklos, Slovak Academy of Sciences. And Martin Stoll, Development Manager of HB Ravis, Slovakia. So, as you can see, we have a mixture of speakers, some of them from public institutions, public sphere, some of them from private sector, also academics. What we will do now is that we'll start with short introductions from the keynote speaker and the panelists, then some shorter reactions, and then the floor is open for your questions. Also, you can pose your questions on Slido application. I think you know it. If not, it's all written in the program that you have. I'll try to mix your questions from Slido with those coming from the auditorium. My name is Radovan Gejs. I'm from Euractiv Slovakia, and I'll be the moderator of the session. And I'm afraid I'll have to be a strict moderator because we don't have so much time. So I'll try to, sometimes, I'm not trying to be rude, I'm just trying to manage the panel. Okay, so without much further ado, I would like to give the floor to Ms. Sirpa Hertel, Vice Chairman of the Commission for Environment, Climate Change and Energy, European Committee of Regions.
Dear speakers, dear participants, ladies and gentlemen, allow me first to extend my warmest thanks to the organizers for having invited me to this session. It's a real pleasure to be here in Bratislava with you today. Today it's very sunny and I hope you slept well, and in Finland it's quite cold and dark, so it's nice to be here with you. Advancing the green economy in our cities and regions is an issue that I feel very strongly about. This is because I have witnessed its benefits both in the political work in my hometown Espoo in Finland, where I'm a vice chair in our city council, and I have been a city council member about 20 years already, and I come from Environment Party. And as a vice chair of the Commission for Environment, Climate Change and Energy at the European Committee of Regions, I don't know how many of you know about Committee of Regions, but I hope after my speech you know a little bit more. And now I want to change. Can I have the first slide? Okay, here. I want to show you this slide because I'm very proud that my home city Espoo scored highly this year to be the most sustainable city in Europe among 140 cities, so I'm proud of this. And this year, 2016, is an important year for urban policies and sustainable development. Now when the Global Climate Agreement has been adopted, as you know, in Paris, and the importance of multi-level governance is recognized in the agreement, it's time to implement these decisions. Cities and regions are bound to play an essential role in this pace. You know that we are getting close to the Habitat 3 conference in Ecuador in October, where the global new urban agenda will be adopted. This agenda is intended to guide sustainable urban development for the next 20 years, and thus give power to implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals for 2030. Also, at EU level, an urban agenda is being established under the Pact of Amsterdam. Now I try if I can do it myself. Okay, no. It should be easy, but it's not so easy. Can you change this next slide there? Okay, great. So this dia is also from Espoo, from my home city, near Helsinki, if you don't know exactly where Espoo is. But I want to tell you that by 2020, 80% of the European Union's population is likely to live in urban and peri-urban areas. Cities and towns are powerful engines for growth and job creation. At the same time, cities are often confronted with difficult and complex environmental and societal challenges. An ever-growing number of European cities and regions are putting resource efficiency and the green economy at the core of their urban development strategies. They are standard setters in urban sustainability and often pioneer innovative solutions to environmental challenges. Ladies and gentlemen, if we consider the developments that I just have illustrated together, one thing becomes clear to me. It is of fundamental importance to remind the need for a transition to an urban green economy within the new global and European urban agendas. So I want to thank you. The Slovak EU presidency's initiative today comes at the right time. In our opinions at the Committee of Regions, we have stressed that the successful transition to a green economy is a crucial factor for ensuring that competitiveness of the European Union. The green economy brings new jobs, not just in renewable energies and energy efficiency. It has been estimated, for example, that full implementation of the existing waste legislation would lead to an extra 500,000 new jobs. Moreover, the full implementation and management of the Natura 2000 network is expected to support about 100,000 jobs directly and several million indirectly in rural and marginal areas in particular. And the next slide, please, because now I don't have the... Oh, thanks. So, as you see, nature is important also in cities, and you know very well in many ways. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to likely to briefly elaborate on the following three aspects that are crucial for the Committee of Regions in moving our cities and regions towards a green economy. First, the need to keep a broad focus. Second, the potential that cities and regions have to take a territorial and integrated approach. And third, the need to strengthen enabling EU and national frameworks. Let me start shortly with the first point. A green economy needs a broad focus. What do I mean with that? The inclusive green economy, as referred to in the Rio Plus 20 outcome document and the EU 7th Environment Action Programme, is a key tool for achieving sustainable development. The inclusive green economy takes a broad approach. It focuses on resource efficiency and an absolute decoupling of economic growth from environmental degradation. In this context, the Covenant of Mayors, which you know very well, has now gone global and is absolutely crucial for achieving EU and global climate targets, and is a major success in mobilizing cities to be frontrunners in this process. However, when we talk here about green economy, it becomes clear that the covenant of mayors is limited to energy and climate change policies. This brings me to the second point, the unique potential that cities and regions have. It is important that local and regional authorities develop their local or regional green economy strategies for this purpose. Local and regional authorities are in a unique position, as I told many times already, with their combined powers in areas such as legislation, city planning, public procurement, funding, communication, education, and professional training. They can take a cross-cutting approach which brings together other levels of administration. And can I get next slide? In Finland, libraries are very popular. They are free of charge and we use them a lot. In Espoo, they have a special role. They have transformed from the classic silent libraries to active meeting places for everyone. At the same time, when you lend books, you can meet your friends, maybe you can have a small meeting or just read newspapers. And we are very, very proud of our libraries, and all of us want to be or want to keep them free of charge, so they are free to use. And finally, the third aspect, the need to strengthen enabling EU and national frameworks. As mentioned, local and regional authorities can do a lot on their own to promote a green economy. However, the powers of local and regional authorities are limited in some ways, for example, when it comes to reforming tax systems, addressing environmentally harmful subsidies, or the polluter-pays principle. We need EU and national policies and legislation which support local and regional green economies by addressing multi-level governance framework. The EU should deliver stronger action in relation to priority sustainable cities, objective number 8, and set out in the EU's 7th Environment Action Programme. To conclude, I would like to stress that EU still needs to report on how it intends to deliver on the Sustainable Development Goals. Let us hope that this will give a new boost to EU support for cities and regions that aim to work towards a green economy. Great. My last slide tells you that there can't be sustainable development and green economy without active participation of citizens. These activities include in Espoo, for example, protection and promotion of school forests, where teachers can take the children to learn in nature just very close to their own schools, kindergartens, or homes. I hope you will find the presentations and discussion this morning interesting, and thank you so much for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much. With the largely urbanized economies, I think cities play an important role in greening our societies and economies. There are, as you've mentioned, many measures implemented at a local, municipal, or regional level, especially when we talk about participation of citizens, where the cities and municipalities play an important role. Policy and legislative framework is set to a large extent when it comes to environmental norms at the European level. Committee of Regions plays an important role as one of the institutions, and there is an important role for the European Commission, which has a legislative initiative and also has an expertise when designing those policies and legislations. So I would like to welcome on stage Mr. Pavel Misiga, Head of Unit Clean Water at DG Environment, European Commission, please.
Thank you very much for the floor. Good morning to everybody. Yes, I am head of the water unit, so I will try to address the issue of transition of cities to green economy from water perspective. But I focus on water, but please understand that many issues that I will mention in this area may be relevant also for climate change, for other environmental issues and aspects. So water is very important for economy. It is a precondition for economic development, economic growth, prosperity. And here in Europe, we are quite lucky, especially in Northern Europe, not so much Southern Europe. But on average, Europe as a region is lucky because there are water resources. Historically, we have not had too many problems, except certain regions, and we could rely on it. And this availability of clean water supported our development. But we are coming into the moment where our economy consumes so much water, and also in the context of climate change, in the context of industrialization, etc. We are coming into a situation where many regions in Europe experience problems with water. Obviously, Southern Europe with water scarcity, but also other areas with water pollution in relation to climate change, also other environmental risks, floods, etc. So water becomes a kind of risk for future economic development. So this is, and risk is economic category. It can be monetized, you know. If risks realize themselves, then there is economic damage. So it seems to me that in past decades, water was considered as there is no problem. This is we have solved water issues. We have water technology, treatment, etc. No more problems, and it disappeared from the radar screen of politicians and also urban politicians. But increasingly, it's being now recognized as enormous risk. For example, business leaders in the Economic Forum recently, they marked water issues as risk number one for future economic development, global economic development. And what is the role of cities in this? Cities are both affected by these risks because of high density of population and economic activities, so cities need a lot of water. But also cities are important factors. They may be important polluters of water, important consumers, so they can abstract water that may be missing in other economic sectors. They are also exposed to environmental risks like floods. So water issues are very important for cities and should address them. Addressing water problems actually can bring enormous economic opportunities. For example, flood protection, if it is done in a clever way, it can help to revitalize cities and create public spaces, bring new activities. One example of such approach is Nijmegen, a city in the Netherlands, where city council decided to bring river back to the river. It was pushed back through certain infrastructure development in the past. They brought it back to the city and used this as an opportunity to reconstruct and revitalize the whole part of a city with new activities. It became an attractive part of the city. Or, for example, I mentioned city can be an important source of pollution. So opportunity is in addressing this problem, and at the same time to benefit from, for example, recovery of valuable materials. Urban wastewater treatment contains enormous amount of nutrients. Now these nutrients are basically disposed of. And on the other side, we need to put artificial mineral fertilizers to soil to produce our food. So it is possible to design clever urban wastewater treatment systems that separate nutrients, separate fibers and other valuable materials, and this can go back to the economy. It is possible to reuse urban wastewater, wastewater for other purposes, for irrigation, for urban uses, for industrial uses. So this is another opportunity, and there are many examples, many pilot and demonstration projects. For example, the Amsterdam airport, they started to separate different fractions of urban wastewater coming from the airport itself, and they sell materials they separate to other users, so that this treatment system becomes more economic viable. Another opportunity is to address energy efficiency and water efficiency at the same time. For example, Danish city of Aarhus, they designed their water system in such a way, they are so efficient, they optimize the system so that the whole system is energy neutral. In normal cities, water systems, which means water distribution and water treatment, consumes about 4 to 8% of total city energy consumption. In Aarhus, it is zero, and they may be even positive. They may supply energy. And it is because they optimized it, they reduced energy consumption and water consumption in the distribution system, and they optimized the water treatment system and used the biological component to produce energy. So this is another example where addressing environmental problems became opportunity for the economy. Another example may be green infrastructure in cities. Many cities apply different approaches to address problems. For example, several cities in France, in Spain, they allow water to infiltrate rather than to run off from cities, from sealed areas into rivers. This runoff water is an important source of pollution, the chemicals, plastics, etc. But it is possible to maintain this water, to keep it, and to let it infiltrate, to have natural cleanup of this water. And at the same time, these approaches may be much cheaper than sewerage system and treatment stations that need to be applied. So these are all examples how we can combine addressing environmental problems and providing economic opportunity. The problem is this is not happening. At least it is not the mainstream. And we can ask the question why it is so. I think we need leadership in this area. We need cities to understand these opportunities, but also to have courage to abandon the traditional systems that are very expensive, inefficient. They very often don't address the emerging problems like pharmaceuticals in water, micropollutants, etc. So we need active cities to understand this, to take action, to show, to demonstrate that it is possible, so that others can follow. I stop here. Of course, I can speak about that for a long time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think you've mentioned an issue which was actually mentioned a couple of times here before, that environmental risks are in fact economic risks, and investment into green growth is in fact investment into growth. And this brings opportunities for cities. Some of them are already using them, some of them are not, and I'm sure we'll have a space for discussing what are maybe what is hindering municipalities and cities from using those opportunities. Now I would like to welcome Mr. Marek Hitzen, Deputy Regional Director of ICLEI Europe.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. Maybe I'll explain a little bit about what ICLEI is. It's a local government membership organisation, and we support cities to implement sustainable development at a global level. So we have around 1,500 cities and organizations that we work with globally. We work with around 12 megacities, which megacities have a population over 12 million. And we work with around 100 super cities, they're called, which is a population over about 5 million. We work with mid-size and small cities as well. But this means that we globally work with cities that impact on the population is about 25%, mainly because of the megacities and super cities. So these cities can have an important influence. And these are active cities in the field of sustainable development, and many in the green economy program. So what framework are cities acting in? Well, we heard quite a lot yesterday about the different frameworks. So at the international level, we have the United Nations Sustainable Development programs and initiatives, such as the Rio Summits, the 10-year framework of programs on sustainable consumption and production, and also the Sustainable Development Goals. And number 11 is particularly about cities and urban areas, so it was good to see it focus on that. Of course, there's the Paris Agreement at the international level, and now cities are recognized as one of the key implementers of that. At the European level, of course, is the EU 2020 targets. There's a number of sustainable development initiatives and programs. There's the circular economy package, and of course, directives. So what does all this mean for cities? Well, I think to meet these goals is going to require a significant shift, and it's going to impact very deeply on society. And I think that needs to be recognized. It's going to be needing a societal transition. So not just at the policy level, it's not just enough. It needs to involve the society. So it's about the leaders of cities, the politicians, the urban decision makers. It's about the stakeholders, the citizens, the private sector are going to have to co-design and implement these policies at the local level. When you have policies at an international level, European level, it's always the cities that have to deliver them at the local level because they're the closest to the population. So for this societal shift and transition, cities are going to be creative, and they're going to have to be creative because this is at a time when we're coming out of the economic recession. There's high unemployment in certain countries. There's a growing gap between the rich and the poor. In neighboring countries, there's certain conflicts going on. And of course, this is causing immigration. So you have to take this into account that cities have to deal with all of these issues. So being creative is very important. So cities are at the right place, though, I would say, to implement this transition. And they are key players. Let's take transport, for example. So cities are big fleet owners. They're responsible for the infrastructure for transport. They're responsible for the fuel infrastructure as well as the private sector. They're responsible for collecting the taxes related to transport. They're responsible for the local incentives to use, say, public transport. And they're responsible for providing information, again, about public transport and transport systems within a city. Cities are responsible for all that. It's only the national government and the private sector that play a key role in some of those elements. So working with some of the cities and the ones that Pavel mentioned are all ICLEI members, we feel that it's good governance is key to make this transition. And looking at the cities that have taken up this work and looking at the green economy, they recommend there's about 4 or 5 key actions that you need within a city. And it is a strong political politician behind the initiative. It's about having a vision, not necessarily a vision in 2050 that's very grand and that you're not going to meet. It just doesn't make sense. It's about setting targets and having incremental change over 1, 2, 3, 5 years, then reaching a goal of 10, 20, 30 years. Citizens and society need to see changes happening at an early stage. So the quick wins, of course, are important. It's key to involve stakeholders, particularly citizens. They need to co-lead on strategies such as the green economy and sustainable development. It's about working with the private sector and other stakeholders. Cities can't do this on their own. They're only one player. They can maybe take a leading position, but they can't do it all on their own. So The next thing, I think, with this strategy is, of course, the reporting and monitoring. And that needs to be done on a yearly basis. And it also needs to be honest. You need to be honest if you haven't achieved certain things. It's no good saying that you're achieving your goals when you're not. It will become, citizens will see that within a few years. And importantly, you have to do risk management. It is a risk, of course. This societal transformation, these big changes that we need to meet these goals is going to be a risk, particularly for politicians when you're using public money. So you need to have good risk management. There are going to be failures, as well as good practice examples that are failures, and you need to learn from them. So what are cities doing to accelerate it? And what we're doing at ICLE is recommending a certain number of activities and going beyond the usual that we've heard about yesterday and today. So it's looking at the cultural transformation. So for example, it's not just about participation with the citizens. You have to go further than a participatory process. Citizens have to be involved. They have to co-lead with the strategies and the development of it. You have to encourage social enterprises. You have to work with entrepreneurs at the local level. Of course, it's about the economic change, and it's taking those challenges and looking at them as opportunities. So cities have a great opportunity with local energy production. Local renewables is key, I think, for meeting a lot of these goals in the next few years, 5, 10 years. And of course, you can have local renewables in a city. Cities themselves can have solar panels on their roofs. They can have an energy production network working with universities, working with schools. It's also about growing food locally. It's part of the solution, but there are opportunities. City farms. Cooperatives are now working with some of the cities within cities and on the outskirts of cities. It's about having innovative financing schemes as well, not just the typical European schemes that we've got, although they're very important, and the European Investment Bank plays an important role in the infrastructure and supporting cities. But it's about having crowdfunding at a local and regional level. It's about having cooperatives. It's about the sharing economy. And yes, car sharing is a good example, but it's going further than that. It's about local exchange trading systems. Now, they're an important aspect to play. Finally, the technological side, of course, is very important. You mentioned smart cities, and smart cities has an important role to play. It's probably the only way we're going to meet this transformation. But, of course, these technologies have to be sustainable. You have to understand what the impact it is having on the society before we agree to do these. So these technologies need to be selected. It's about data. That's a big issue. And I feel that data should not just be in the private sector. I think it actually should be in the public sector, and I think it should be managed. It should be down to the citizens to say what information is out there and what isn't. It has to be controlled very well, not just the domain of the private sector, and it shouldn't just be used to make money. It's also about procurement, and this is a key one that I'll end on. So sustainable and innovation procurement has a huge potential. Cities, as was mentioned earlier by the colleague from the Committee of the Regions, count about 15 to 80% of GDP in Europe alone. So it can have a great market influence, but don't get it wrong, they're not going to come together and start buying products and services together. But they can send a message to the market that they want products and services. A single tender from a city can influence about where the raw materials come from. What are the raw materials going into a product and service? The labor conditions under which these are produced. The actual product and service itself, whether it's energy efficient, for example, how it's even delivered to a city or a region. Then, of course, you've got the use and maintenance, and then, of course, the disposal. You can influence that. Can it be recycled? Can it be reprocessed, reused? Can energy be gained from breaking down the materials? There's a huge potential there. I could talk about that for another 30 minutes, but I'll stop there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I like the numbers you've mentioned at the beginning. It turns out that any of the members, megacities or supercities of your organization, is larger, or at least as large as the country which is hosting this conference. So it shows that those cities really do play an important role in development of green economy and society. And also, yesterday we had a panel on research and innovation, And one of the recurring themes was that it takes more than a bunch of technicians to build green economy. You have mentioned that it's not only technological innovation, but also, let's call it business innovation, organizational innovation, and so on, which has to contribute to this goal. Now, I would like to welcome another speaker who is coming actually from a city, Mr. Josef Knot, Deputy Mayor of the city of Písek from Czech Republic. I think just to give you a bit of time, we'll go to Mr. László Miklos from the Slovak Academy of Sciences, Slovakia.
Mm-hmm. I would like to use.
Yes, of course.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Bratislava. I came from Slovak Academy of Science, but beside of that, I am also a university teacher at the Technical University in Zvolen, and beside of that, I used to be for 80 the Minister of Environment of Slovakia. Please perceive the slides like a mosaic and probably concentrate on violet. But how does it work? Okay. So the title is quite complicated, but generally it is about, where should I? Okay, excuse me. Yeah. What can do the cities, regional and local authorities for the mitigation and adaptation to the climatic changes? I would raise 7 questions. Problem settings is quite simply. Slovakia produces less than 1% of the EU total GHG emissions, but suffers the same extent of the impacts as the big emitters. Therefore, it's logic that we have to concentrate more to adaptation policies than to the struggle against the emissions. The second problem setting is more scientific. What is the main climatic effect in Slovakia? It is frequent sudden intensive rains, and consequently there are flash floods on small rivers, soil erosion, accumulation, silting the reservoirs, landslides. So what can do the cities against those problems? First question is, first the scientific background is the research of landscape as the geosystem. It is just mosaic. I'm teaching that for my students, that what is actually the landscape. That is the same. The first question is then, where happens the quick runoff? And who manages the landscapes? So the answer is everywhere, everywhere. In forests, in waters, in agricultural land, in built-up areas. So the first answer is everywhere. The second question, sub-question is, who manages these landscapes? And the answer, different sectors, unfortunately. Different in forestry, agriculture, water management, nature conservation, urbanization, and other sectors. Problem is that the landscape is an integrated entity, but the policies are analytical and separated. The second question is, what is needed and what can do the cities, regional and local authorities for the adaptation to those changes? So the answer is theoretically very simply, we need integrated landscape management for all those politics. But how to do that? What is in the competence of the self-government in this respect, actually? So if we look to different possible competencies, we see that the only competencies in local authorities is the physical or spatial or territorial. In Slovak it is called territorial planning. It is the only competence in the hand of the local authorities. The others are in state competencies. Then the third question is, what is the integrated management and how to do it? So there are different theories and also political support for that. Actually, it was defined already in Agenda 21 in Rio conference, but generally there are almost in each country in European Union, also in Slovakia, some procedures which are promoted by law. We have so-called landscape ecological planning. Which institutional tools for integrated management exist in EU? In Slovakia, actually, I told that, so they are different. In Slovakia, we have 7 basic ones, which very important is that the territorial physical planning is not in the hand of Ministry of Environment, but more in the hand of the Ministry of Transport and Regional Development. What do the sectoral spatial planning tools care about in reality? Are they tools for integration? So I would say that there are more parallel actions, much less coordination. We had a very good answer quite recently in the act of flood protection, where defined by law, it is the word-by-word translation, what is integrated landscape management. But unfortunately, since 2013, it has been deleted from the law. I don't want to go to the details why. Sixth question is, what is the best competence then for the self-government for mitigation and adaptation for the green solutions? So if we look to the basic institutional tools, we see that it is the territorial planning. Why? Because it is in competence of local authorities. It is defined by law as integrative tool, and it includes strong green solutions, and it is the so-called territorial system of ecological stability and the landscape ecological planning. Both those tools are defined by law. The K green element is the territorial system of ecological stability, which which is defined in 6 other planning tools. And the 7th question, probably the most important, if we have so nice definitions, what are actually the possibilities or the problems of the implementation of those politics? Why it is a problem? So first is the political will. I can say and state the sectoral approach is very strong and prevailing. Very strong and prevailing. Much more strong are the sectors than the local communities. And let's say a will of a developer is much more probably stronger as the wish of the mayor. We have here also a mayor. The second problem are finances. There are sectoral programs, but the sectoral programs of European Union, I may say that don't promote integrated approach in this respect, what I try to explain. There is another program which is called EROP, Integrated Regional Operation Program, but unfortunately, I worked on that, unfortunately, from the professional point of view, is rather disintegrative than integrative, unfortunately. And beside of this, that is also heavy administration. So actually, there are many problems, but fortunately, there is still a lot of work for all of us, and all those problems are solvable, so depend on people. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much. You have highlighted, I think they'll manage it, it's okay. You have highlighted some of the environmental risks that the urban areas are facing. You've talked about the important role of the territorial or urban planning, not only in European cities, but globally. And it's quite obvious that facing those environmental risks and challenges requires not only a holistic approach, but also coordination of different actors and sectors. So I'm glad that we have here representative from the corporate sphere. We have here Mr. Martin Stoll, development manager of HB Ravi Slovakia, one of the big real estate developers, which is active not only in Slovakia but also in other countries in Europe and in the world. So please, the floor is yours.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for being able to be part of this panel in the first place. For us, it is very important to be part of the whole process of planning the city. We perceive it as a big priority for us to be part of the whole chemistry that is preparing our future in the cities. So let me first say a couple of words about us as a developer. It's a Slovak success story which started some 2 decades ago. Started small, and it grew into one of the largest developers in Europe. We're one of the 10 the biggest developers in the European Union right now. We have projects running in 4 countries of the Visegrad 4, plus in Istanbul, Turkey, and London, UK. And we've built already 29 big development projects, totaling in approximately almost 1 million square meters of leasable space. We're focusing on primarily office and retail projects, and most of them happen in the cities. That's why we perceive that we should be part of this discussion. Looking back historically, in the course of the post-communist boom in the 1990s, what happened was that developers just flourished very much, built very rapidly, and this resulted in some kind of stigma which is carried on till these days. We would like to contribute to changing this paradigm into cooperation. So the partnership with the city is quite crucial to us. That's why we are trying to be part of all the discussions that are happening, whether it's on the smart cities, whether it's on the public spaces, and so forth. I would like to emphasize that sustainability as such is at the core of our business. We are bound to comply with the legislature and the standards that are in place in Slovakia, which had been introduced as part of the directives from the European Union from 2002. We are obliged as of this year to bring our buildings efficiency down to A10, and post 2020 we are supposed to build all of our buildings in the passive standard of A0, which is quite a problem in itself for ourselves, a technological problem. If you imagine high-rise buildings with glazed facades and big shopping malls, it's almost impossible to achieve. So we're tackling with this issue. Nevertheless, we go beyond this, and 4 years ago we have made a decision to certify all of our new projects in the British BREEAM system, which is a holistic system which takes into consideration much broader scale of issues, including water, the pollution of the air, mitigating the climate change effects, the traffic, and so forth. Plus, this pertains to the buildings themselves. On the macro scale, on the master planning scale, we also use the BREEAM communities system, which basically encourages the developers to communicate with the local community. If Mark had mentioned here in the presentation a short while ago that it's imperative to involve all the stakeholders of the local community, this is what we are striving to do right now. And also in the micro scale within the buildings, we are attempting to create a healthy environment for the employees, for the workers. So we are using the WELL certifying system, which is a branch of LEED. It's a brand new system which strives to not only improve the efficiency of the employees, but make them more happy and productive in the workplace. So this is what we do right now. My time is running short, so I don't want to stretch it too much, but basically I would like to focus on this partnership with the city, and we would like to encourage the creation of the tri-party panels, which should be happening regularly, involving the developers, the city, and the local community. We're very lucky and fortunate here in Bratislava to have a very strong activist community, and to a large extent they're supplying the absent functions of the city. For example, the absent regulation of the bicycle paths, the greenery, and so forth. So we are cooperating with all these groups, and what we see as the biggest challenge, for example, here in Bratislava, is the lack of a good, functioning, flexible master plan. The city master plan is outdated. Just an example, we still have there metro, subway, and the master plan, which everybody knows that's not going to happen. We know that we are focusing on trams instead, but we are obliged to basically take into consideration all the regulations and zoning. So this is one part of it. We would very much welcome to follow the lead of, for example, Mr. Architect Roman Koutsky in Prague, who had led the team to develop a new city master plan for the city of Prague. And we believe that one of the biggest challenges here in Bratislava is the traffic and the urban sprawl. For example, one number in Bratislava, the density of the population is 12 people per hectare, compared to Vienna, where it's 40 people per hectare. So being stretched for 25 kilometers from one end to the other, Bratislava really needs to focus within the city, which doesn't mean to build higher and eliminate greenery. It means to build more efficiently. And this is all that I have time for. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm sure we'll have more time in discussion to discuss some of the points you've raised, because, and I'm glad you have mentioned that it's also about the way we see the roles of different stakeholders. For example, developers, are they just the producers of square meters, or are they co-developers of urban space? Ultimately, it also affects the price of the property. Some kind of a smart urban growth, smart urban development. Now, I would like to give floor to last member of our panel, Mr. Josef Knot, Deputy Mayor of City of Písek from Czech Republic. So please.
Okay, yes, please. Oh, that's very nice. Thank you so much.
V prvé řadě hezké dopoledne, dámy a pánové. Já jsem přijel na Slovensku, mám strašně rád slovenštinu, a když vám to nebude vadit, tak já bych na oplátku použil tentokrát češtinu. A v prvé řadě ještě dovolte mi, abych poděkoval vůbec za pozvání, za možnost prezentovat město Písek, město, které je jedním z lídrů v České republice v rámci tématu Smart City. Když dovolíte, abyste na úvod vůbec jste byli schopni orientovat, kde město Písek leží, chápu, že určitě všichni z vás znají Prahu, Bratislavu, Brno, Ostravu. Město Písek leží v poměrně strategické lokalitě zhruba 100 km od Prahy a zhruba 100 km jižně od hranic s Rakouskem a s Německem. Naše rozloha je zhruba 6 000 hektarů, žije ve městě Písku zhruba 30 000 obyvatel a jak už jsem říkal, nachází se v jižních Čechách. V čem je město Písek asi do určité míry typické, v čem je dle mého názoru zajímavé? Máme ve městě Písku zhruba 30 000 průmyslovou zónu. Je to zóna největší v Jihočeském kraji, kde je zasídleno několik moderních podniků, jako je Schneider Electric, to znamená společnost, která je lídrem v informačních technologiích a lídrem obecně v konceptech Smart Cities. Je tam zasídlená společnost ISIN, SNOP, samé víceméně významné zahraniční společnosti. Byli jsme několikrát oceněni jako městem pro biznis, městem pro život, naposledy v roce 2014. Jak jsme se vlastně k tématu Smart Cities dostali? Je to téma, které je zhruba staré, aspoň pro město Písek, 2 roky, kde jsme se právě potkali s privátní sférou, s akademickou sférou, se státním sektorem a dali jsme dohromady 2, dle mého názoru, strategické dokumenty. To je ten pohled to je pohled právě samosprávy. Když jsem tady slyšel předchozí diskuzní příspěvky, tak se týkaly spíše takových do určité míry velmi zajímavých, ale obecnějších témat a jakým způsobem město Písek přistupovalo k tomu, jak uchopit vlastně koncept Smart Cities, obecně podporu ekologie, podporu elektromobility, podporu snižování emisí na našem území. Vytvořili jsme něco, čemu se obecně říká strategický plán. Dle mého názoru naprosto klíčový dokument, který vznikal na základě iniciativy a kontaktování píseckých občanů, kdy, jak jsem říkal, z 30 000 města na základě našich výzev se zhruba zúčastnilo asi 800 respondentů, které definovaly největší potřeby a největší úskalí ve městě Písku. Na základě i těchto informací jsme vytvořili asi první koncepční dokument v České republice, který se zabývá tématikou Smart City. Je to zhruba 100stránkový dokument, který jsme nazvali Modrožlutá kniha. Není v tom nic překvapivého, Písek disponuje modrou a žlutou jakožto našimi barvami a proto jsme tento dokument nazvali Modrožlutá kniha. Co ten dokument obsahuje? Vytyčuje klíčové partnery, to znamená partnery, se kterými město Písek je v nejúžším kontaktu a na základě kterých rozvíjí právě myšlenku Smart City. Je tam zastoupena akademická sféra, konkrétně Fakulta dopravní ČVUT v Praze, panem děkanem Miroslavem Svítkem. Je tam zastoupena, jak už jsem říkal, i komerční sféra. V Písku máme technologické centrum, jakožto jedno z nejvyspělejších technologických center v České republice, které dneska zaměstnává zhruba 100 špičkových IT odborníků, takže je to jeden z našich takových klíčových poradců. Dále autodopravci jako ČSAD autobusy nebo společnost Schneider Electric, francouzská poměrně výrazná nadnárodní korporace, která, jak už jsem říkal, je lídrem v oblasti Smart City, která investuje do vědy a výzkumu zhruba asi 1 miliardu korun ročně. Těch takzvaných stakeholderů je tam poměrně hodně, ale vyjmenoval jsem zhruba takové ty klíčové. Tak, už jsem zmiňoval, jaké jsou naši partneři. Možná ještě by stálo za zmínku společnost E.ON, je to lokální, je to spíše jako nadnárodní velký hráč v oblasti energetiky, ale v Jihočeském kraji je to hlavní lídr s elektrickou energií. Na co se vlastně celá naše modrožlutá kniha zaměřuje? Zaměřuje se zhruba na 3 lokality nebo na 3 pilíře, které jsme si vytýčili, které právě vzešly jak z podnikatelské sféry, tak i ze sféry klasických občanů města Písku. Je to v prvé řadě mobilita. Občané rádi by zvýšili počet parkovacích míst na našem území a zároveň získali větší nebo dostatek parkovacích ploch na sídlištích a podobně. Je to jeden z klíčových pilířů, které si město Písek vytýčilo a je to jeden ze zásadních takových témat, na které se město Písek zaměřuje. Další z témat je energetika. A tím třetím je ICT, které pro nás hraje tu roli, které provazuje právě tyto klíčové pilíře. Projekty, protože tady máme poměrně málo času, na které se město Písek soustředilo. Vzhledem k tomu, že chceme redukovat obecně znečištění na našem území a snížení energetické náročnosti, tak město Písek už v roce 2013 zavedlo koncept, který se jmenuje Energy Performance Contracting, takzvané EPC, kde privátní sektor investuje prostředky do veškerých městských budov a na základě toho a tyto prostředky jsou spláceny z úspor v rámci elektrické energie a obecně nákladů na vytápění budov a tak dále. Tento systém je poměrně sofistikovaný a město Písek ročně na tom už šetří z našeho rozpočtu zhruba 1 až 2 miliony korun s tím, že se nám tato investice splácí a zhruba za nějakých 7-8 let tato investice bezúplatně přejde do majetku města Písku. Je to poměrně zásadní věc, a jak už jsem říkal, spadá do této metody veškeré budovy, které město Písek vlastní, to znamená základní školy, mateřské školy, divadlo, zimní stadion, fotbalový stadion a tak dále. Je to zásadní věc, jakým způsobem redukovat elektrickou energii bez investice města. Zároveň vlastně tyto informace, které získáváme, tak formou takzvaných open dat zveřejňujeme na webovém portálu města, to znamená, že občan Písku má možnost v reálném čase vidět, jaké jsou aktuální spotřeby obecně energie v těchto našich objektech. Zároveň už jsem hovořil o tom, že město Písek se soustředí obecně na mobilitu, dopravu v klidu a my zásadním způsobem podporujeme elektromobilitu na našem území. V současné době jsme vybudovali jednu veřejnou dobíjecí stanici s tím, že letos počítáme s vybudováním dalších 2 dobíjecích stanic na našem území a s tím, že jednu dobíjecí stanici právě darovala společnost Schneider Electric a další dobíjecí stanice bude implementovat společnost E.ON. Vzhledem k tomu, že moje prezentace je zhruba v polovině, tak věřím tomu, že se ještě dostaneme na konkrétní projekty, které ve městě Písku chystáme. Možná bych ještě řekl jednu klíčovou věc. Město Písek je pilotním městem v rámci České republiky z pohledu i Ministerstva životního prostředí, kde máme podepsanou deklaraci o tom, že se ve městě Písku budou určitým způsobem testovat technologie, které by Ministerstvo životního prostředí rádo implementovalo do zbytku České republiky. A já teď končím a případně jsem připraven diskutovat o dalších projektech, které ve městě Písku se chystají, respektive by mohly být implementovány. Omlouvám se. Mějte se zatím hezky.
Thank you. Thank you very much. In the end, I think it was good that we had your presentation at the end of the panel because you have actually illustrated some of the things that were discussed here before, the need for active participation of citizens and also of transparent governance on the municipal level, cooperation between different stakeholders, and some of the concrete examples you shown, I think, illustrate this. Now we have a few minutes for shorter reactions. If you want to have shorter reactions on other panelists or speakers, you can speak now. Otherwise, I'll just open discussion and for questions from the auditorium. So, if no shorter reactions, okay, yeah.
If I may, just very brief reflection on what Mr. Miklos said. It was very interesting to see the situation in Slovak Republic, the kind of institutional powers and competencies in different areas. And if I understand well, he shows that structurally there may be problem because institution at the moment may not be maybe they don't have powers or capacity to deal. Sometimes they have a conflicting interest, and of course this is enormous barrier for addressing problems, and we see it in all possible environmental areas. But from my discussion with cities, and especially cities that achieved certain progress in addressing environmental issues and at the same time providing economic opportunities. It was that city, because of unique position, because of their support by citizens, their economic power, because many economic activities take place in cities, they are able to facilitate certain collaboration and addressing this problem. This is why I think that cities can be actually leader and to address and point out to these structural problems that maybe government needs to resolve. But cities has this unique position. They can bring citizens, government, businesses together and act as platform for first understanding the problem, identifying issues that needs to be solved, developing solution and implementing solution. So even if the problems are structural, if there is leadership at city level, problems can be addressed. Sometimes it is very controversial. Look at Paris and about 10 other European big cities that actually bring their national governments and European Commission to the court because they say the policy that you are developing is not sufficient for us to address air quality issues. So they probably couldn't find another way, but brought them to the court. But at least cities took their kind of power and role and responsibility for addressing air quality issues and started to act. And I think that this is the unique position of cities.
Okay, thank you. So now the floor is open for your questions. I see one over there. So please. If you could also introduce yourself shortly.
Ivan Bayer, Solar Society for the Future. I have a question about the relationships between the concept of smart city and the broader concept, smart nation. It's a very bright example of smart nation concept from Singapore, which is probably the first nation that brings this concept for the world. And my question is whether this concept of smart nation can be implemented in Slovak or Czech cities or any European cities, because as I know, we have very little information about this more broader problem of smart nation. This is not only smart city. This is mood of thinking, mood of forecasting. So there are very many problems that are bigger than on the level of smart city. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And yes, we'll take one more question over there.
Thank you. My name is Daniel Leshinsky. I'm coming from Center for Sustainable Alternatives, what is NGO from Slovakia. I have a question related to empowering the green solutions in cities. We heard several presentations, nice example from PSEC, but looking from my country, but also in other countries, Middle and Eastern Europe, we see that it's not working, and we see barriers at all levels, starting at EU level, as the EU programs which are adopted in member states did not follow the good know-how for integrated planning, for instance. Then it's at national level where the national legislation is barrier for taking any solutions, and then at municipal level where it's missing the will to do something different, and still the rainwater is drainage to the rivers. The parking places are building instead of cycling roads, and so on and so on, from current EU funds. And I don't understand this. So can you give me some answers or some key how to solve it? Thanks.
Okay, thank you. And I would add maybe one more question because it relates to the first one, and we'll take another question from the Slido. One more question from Slido, and it's about the concrete proposals for better cooperation between local and central governments, national governments, towards green economy. I suggest we could answer in the same order as we had the presentations, and you can pick on any question that you think is suitable for you. So please, Ms. Hartau, if you want to answer any of the questions.
Some or any. Yeah, very nice questions. This Singapore smart nation, can it be involved to Europe? I don't know, but maybe it's something to do with this last question about what green solutions we can have in cities, and maybe this is an answer to all these questions, that this sustainable development can be done only if we have active citizens, and to get active citizens we need happy taxpayers, because if we want to have a clean, smart and clean city, we need one example, for example from Espoo. We need good public transport, and we need very expensive train, metro, tram. They are all expensive, and we need taxpayers' money, but we need cheap public transport tickets. So if that our citizens want to pay this 100 million for 1 kilometer to get the metro from Helsinki to Espoo, it's about 10 kilometers. It's very expensive, but then we have to offer cheap public transport tickets to get them to use it and to pay it. So that's the question, that we need active citizens, and we have to work together with them. It's something to do with that Singapore smart nation and also these green solutions to cities. And for me, I think that the public transport is the key issue. As the water, as the flooding and the water, according to this climate change, it's also very important. But public transport is most important, and we have to support it. In Espoo, we pay about 50% from the ticket price with taxpayers' money, and the 50% are paying by the travelers. Thanks.
Thank you. Maybe I would point a second question to Mr. Misiga, because I'm quite sure that environmental concerns are very much at the center of the work of your DG, but how much are they concerned for other DGs in the European Commission? How much is the environment actually streamlining to their own decision and policy making? Let's talk about DG Regio or DG Growth. So maybe if you could try to answer the question, what's the role of sustainable urban planning in the European programs and the way how they are implemented at the national level?
Thank you. It's a difficult question to answer. Of course, at national level, the government is structured along different sectors. So the Commission has similar structure. So there are thematic, sectoral directorates general that implement and develop policies, sectoral policies. But we all try to integrate it and consider other policy objectives when a sectoral policy is developed or implemented. The question, especially about regional funds, I think the problem is that one of the problems is that the management of structural funds is decentralized. So basically, planning takes place at national level. So if something is wrong conceptually at national level, at European level, it is almost impossible to change it, because the European institutions do not have that competence, and also somehow not only competence, but we don't have all the needed knowledge of local situation, etc. So this is also what member states ask for. They wanted to have decentralized management. So the operational programs are proposed in Slovakia, are developed by Slovak national authorities. And they are checked at European level only for consistency with European policies and legislation, especially legislation. So where there is clear inconsistency, then the European institutions can act. But if it is something that is not against the law, it is very difficult to say any member states, you should do it or you have to do it in this or that way. Concerning this integration, yes, there are conflicts, there are tensions, because of course there are kind of natural conflicts between objectives of certain policies, but these conflicts are usually sorted out through dialogue, through communication, sometimes with good success, sometimes with less success, and the problems continue. I can give you one example. In my area, for example, now we have very intensive communication between Directorate General for Environment and Directorate General for Agriculture, because there is more and more evidence that agriculture remains to be very important source of pollution for water bodies in Europe in general. And without addressing agriculture pollution, we are not able to achieve environmental objectives and objective of Water Framework Directive. So this kind of understanding leads to negotiations, and I believe that in future it may be turned, this communication between two sectoral DGs will lead to modification of legislation and hopefully better integration of these concerns. But it is a process that continues, and this process is successful usually where there is support from the bottom, where national governments demand this, where other stakeholders demand this integration. And sometimes we see very strong support for this integration, sometimes we simply don't see it. That support, that demand is not there. And then it is very difficult to achieve better integration.
Okay.
All right, thank you. I'll take maybe the two questions. I think the smart nation, smart city question, it's a good question. I guess one of the first responses is yes, it should be looked at. I think some countries which are maybe smaller scale, it could be an opportunity. You would definitely need strong political leadership. But the questions I would ask you before we even consider that is, well, what does smart mean? I mean, we've got this smart cities agenda. We're one of the first pilot project. We're a partner in that with the city of Stockholm. We're leading on it. And we're 2 years into it, and we're still looking at what is really meant by smart. Now, smart to a lot of cities, and I imagine this will be the same for national government, is being seen businesses selling technology that they already have off the shelf, or collecting data which enables better use for mobility, for example, of energy. But as I said earlier, a lot of the smart technologies are not necessarily good for society. They're not necessarily sustainable. Now we're struggling with finding out what is really working, and these first smart city projects funded by the European Commission are pilots to look into that. So I think it is possible, but you, at the national level, as you also have at the city level, different departments, particularly in Europe, find it difficult to work together. And certainly with smart cities, it's about integration. It's about linking energy, it's about linking transport, it's about linking water. And they're run by different departments. So actually, it's historically very difficult to bring all those together. So I think that would be one of the barriers, but it's certainly worth considering. And it's true why the focus is on city instead of at the national level, I'm not sure. So it's certainly a good question and worth looking into, but it's difficult. It's very large scale. When you're talking about a smart city, they actually broke it down to a neighborhood to try and pilot it. So a particular neighborhood where people live, maybe a size of 500 flats or houses, and how transport's connected to that, how energy is connected, about refurbishment of buildings there, about the community. So doing that on a city scale is massive. Doing that at a national level is even bigger. So I can see that there would be a lot of problems with that. To your question, yeah, I mean, it is an issue. The fact that a lot of the maybe European funding is quite set in its ways in that sense. It was developed over the past few years, and the agenda, such as smart cities, has moved very quickly. And I think the policy maybe hasn't caught up with those framework programs. But I would also say it's not just the EU, it is the member states developing the background to these programs and what they want to focus on. So it is a national government issue, and they should really be looking at channeling that into to the green economy. You've also got administrative problems. Procurement, for example, the people who are managing this funding are struggling with how to do the procurement. They're struggling to bring sustainability into it. They don't know how to do that, so they need training, raising awareness of how to do it. But also, I think it's coming from the city side as well. I think it's not just at the European level. I think to make changes that we're talking about, this big transitional change, it requires political leaders to stand up and act responsibly. And to make these changes in a 5-year term is very difficult, particularly if you're looking to get in again in the next 5 years. So I think it's a mixture of both, but I agree that the programs maybe don't go far enough to make this happen at the ground, particularly the examples that I gave. This is quite advanced. But I do think it's possible, and I think certainly the European Union and the Commission are open to having new types of projects to meet the green economy, to look at the social transition. I think they're very keen to bring it in, but I think the skills, the professionalisation, the education is missing. It's not there yet. That's probably what the key thing that's lacking. But there are some good examples of using the European structural funds for local sustainability and green economy. There are some examples out there.
Thank you. Mr. Miklos, you had mentioned actually in your presentation the relation between the national government and local governments and the limited possibilities of local municipalities, what they could do actually with the environmental risks. So if you could provide some advice or a recipe for a good relation between local and national government to address the green economy or green society concerns and challenges. So,
probably the question is the relation between the sectors, not between state and community, but between sectors and the integrative approach. So, and most easy to explain it is, let's say, on the floods. It's much easier to understand for each of you, and also for citizens, for mayors and everybody, how to plan, how to build a barrier or a dam against the flood, as to speculate that how to project a complex integrative system, not to lower the runoff from the surroundings to come to the city. By the way, by the building of dam or barrier are running money. But to have to lower the runoff from the whole country. One part of country is belonging to forest, the other part is belonging to the owners of the land. It is not so easy. Much easier is to build up a dam. So this is I would say the nature understanding of the whole issue. The other thing is that why is not possible to realize that what the scientific sphere already knows, and it is even implemented to the act, to the rules, and it is still not as successful as the sectoral approaches. I can tell you a lot, hundreds of examples also in Slovakia. Let's say by Nitra or whatever, wherever, it's much easier to build a dam than to speculate about it. Another issue. We were very glad when in this program period the European Union allowed or developed the program of integrated Europe, integrated regional operation program. But the main authority for this program is the Ministry of Agriculture. And the program is actually a complex of different competencies from other programs, from environment, a little bit from environment, a little bit for agriculture, a little bit for urbanization, and so on and so on. And finally, it was like a salami, cut, and finally, it is not an integrative program, but it's a disintegrative program. What Daniel Leshinsky mentioned, let's say, why is not possible to manage the runoff, the rainwater within the cities with other water system. So our first understanding was exactly that the villages could have a project which would integrate the runoff from the fields, from the forest, the water in the river or in the creeks, and the waters what are collected in the cities from roofs and or other. It is, believe me, it is not possible to produce such a project. It is simply not possible because this is belonging to forest, this is belonging to agriculture, this is belonging to water management, and this is belonging to urbanization. So this is the problem. First, I think that the basic understanding, and then also the political or other kind of wishes, because what Mr. Mishika told, the relation between citizens and city government, it is not always the same, isn't it? The city government and the citizens are on the same, I would say, same note in the moment of election. But after it could diverge from each other, and not always is the will of the citizen the same as the will of the mayor or the city government or of the developers. So
Okay.
it's very complicated, and I would say that I raise those questions not as a simply criticism. It is simply a problem setting, and we have to behave us, and we have to try to solve it. And we do it for tens of years. We try to push this integrative approach.
A matter of good governance and transparency is important on all of us, indeed. A couple of months back, I was in Ulaanbaatar. I love the country, but I really didn't like the city. What I saw there was something which I see in many Slovak cities, but much more concentrated. Run for square meters, no coordination in urban development, and so on. So my question to you would be, is it actually possible to somehow balance, let's say, a natural interests of companies or developers, because they want to make profit, they are companies, and the interests of citizens, which have also other concerns, and presumably municipalities which should defend their interests. So do you think that it's possible to balance them or even find some synergies?
Basically, for us as a developer, creating a working chemistry within the development means also that we need to discuss the issues with community and tailor it to their needs. Otherwise, it's not functioning. And this also applies to the environment. We try to be really conscious of what we do and where we do it. So in the course of our development in the past 20 years, we have learned a lot, and I think the thinking is changing also. It's becoming much more bigger priority to cooperate with everybody and to be a sort of good citizen within the city rather than being an opponent and adversary. Maybe I would like to take a slightly different angle though to the questions that have been raised here regarding the smart city, smart nation. From my standpoint, if I simplify it a little bit, smart city cannot be implemented from above. It cannot be imposed. So basically the role of the government of the city should be to create an environment where the initiative from below can flourish and channel it into some systematic solutions which can result in smart cities. So this is the problem, generally speaking, about the smart cities. This is the same problem talking about the legislature. Within our national legislature, we see a building code, for example, which is pretty much restrictive. It tells you what exactly you shouldn't do, what you should do, but it doesn't open the doors for the initiative, which is the biggest problem because it stifles all the innovations, and this is where I think our legislature should be heading. It is very sad if we, for example, go to the city and discuss our intention to have our project certified in BREEAM. And what we hear from them, it's just your business, it's just marketing, we don't care. So this strong approach. And as a good example, I would like to mention, for example, the UK system, where the municipalities encourage developers who are using the BREEAM communities system, which is a holistic system involving all the stakeholders. And if the developers choose to go this route and have their project certified, they streamline the permitting process. They can cut the time of permitting to 1/3 of the normal time that it would take. So this is something that I would like to see here from the municipality to recognize the good developers who are trying to be forthcoming and helpful in creating a good city and smart city. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Knoll, maybe this is the place where you can highlight some of the projects you have in PSEC that show that the kind of cooperation is possible.
Děkuji. Já bych ale možná zareagoval na otázku nejdřív vaši. Já jsem letos v březnu byl na poměrně velké mezinárodní konferenci pozván i jako speaker v Taipei na summit Smart Cities Expo, tuším druhý ročník, kde město Písek shodou okolností podepisovalo deklaraci s americkým Orlandem, s Eindhovenem, s Láciem, s Tel Avivem a samozřejmě Taipei. Já musím říct, že pro mě to byla obrovská zkušenost, protože Česká republika, jsem pochopil, respektive město Písek, má úplně diametrálně odlišné potřeby, než má Taipei. Samozřejmě Taipei má odlišné potřeby, než má Orlando, a Tel Aviv má úplně jiné potřeby, než má Písek, Orlando a Taipei. Takže myslím si, že v základních věcech, v těch obecných principech, my jsme schopni se jako samosprávy na určitých věcech domlouvat, jsme schopni prostě si vzájemně sdělovat zkušenosti, ale to je to, co jsem říkal na začátku v té mé prezentaci, proto já jsem říkal, jak Písek si stojí. My nepotřebujeme v Písku dneska generovat nové volné pracovní místa, protože my máme pracovních míst dostatek. Pro nás paradoxně, možná, že to zní až trošku kacířsky, ale pro nás, kdyby zasídla v Písku další fabrika, tak my už ve své podstatě pro ně nemáme ani zaměstnanců. Znamená, že budeme muset dovážet lidi zejména z Moldávie, z Rumunska a podobně a otázka je, jestli vůbec pro nás tohleto je ekonomický přínos jako pro město. Kdežto samozřejmě zase města stylu Ostrava, Brno a podobně, ty mají ty problémy trochu jiný, ty naopak potřebují generovat nové pracovní místa. Takže já obecně jsem k principu Smart Cities velmi optimistický, ale na druhou stranu vycházím z reality, která je. Každá obec, každý stát bude mít trochu diametrálně odlišné potřeby a na základě nich si musí právě stanovovat ty priority, o kterých já jsem mluvil, a ty priority musí vycházet právě z řad těch občanů. K projektům, o kterých jste hovořili, my žádáme teď o poměrně veliké peníze, už tady byly zmiňované IROPy a podobné fondy. Já jsem mluvil o tom, že ve městě Písku jsme jako jednu ze zásadních priorit si stanovili dopravu. A samozřejmě my nemůžeme nařídit občanům, aby vyměnili dieselové a benzínové auta za elektromobily a auta jezdící na CNG, ale co můžeme udělat my, jít příkladem. To znamená, že my teď žádáme o velkou investici na komplet změnu vozového parku, především jako MHD parku, kdy žádáme právě do IROPu, podali jsme asi před 14 dny žádost o dotaci na 40 milionů korun na komplet novou flotilu na CNG a elektrobusy. To je to, co právě si myslím ta samospráva může udělat. To znamená, že v centru města bude jezdit pouze autobus na elektrický pohon, nic jiného. To je ten cíl, jak vlastně snižovat obecně emise na území města Písku. Hovořil jsem o tom, že město Písek uzavřelo deklaraci s Ministerstvem životního prostředí. Teď jsme podáváme žádost do programu LIFE, není to IROP, na vysoce inovativní technologii, která se právě má zabývat spalováním kalů a biomasy. Ta technologie momentálně funguje asi rok v Bavorsku, testuje se proto, aby byla implementovaná v celém Německu a Ministerstvo životního prostředí má tu vůli podpořit tuto investici, která pro Písek, a proto jsem říkal Písek, který má 30 000 obyvatel, tak takováhle technologie stojí zhruba 1 milion euro. Ta technologie dokáže tak efektivně a ekologicky spalovat kaly, že ve své podstatě do toho ovzduší neodchází vůbec žádný popílek, ale pouze vodní pára. Sama ta technologie je schopná si vytvořit svoji vlastní elektrickou energii na to, aby byla, řekněme, soběstačná. Zároveň vygeneruje poměrně zajímavé množství tepla, které my jsme schopni pustit do naší soustavy. Ale jaký to má další pozitivní efekt je ten, a to je i ten politický, a to je ten pro ty občany, a to je v tom já právě spatřuju ten koncept toho smart city, jako nějakou jistou chytrost, přidanou hodnotu, je, že nás v rámci vodného a stočného spalování, nebo obecně ekologická likvidace kalů stojí zhruba 2 miliony korun. Ale tato technologie vlastně dokáže udělat to, že my ty 2 miliony korun můžeme z nákladů na stočné v uvozovkách dát pryč a zlevnit občanům vodné a stočné zhruba o 1 korunu. V tom bych řekl, že spočívá jakoby smysl podle mě obecně jakoby principu nebo přístupu k těm chytrým městům. Samozřejmě tohleto si myslím, že je třeba jeden z pilotních projektů, které já bych byl rád, aby třeba Ministerstvo životního prostředí si dalo jako jeden z pilířů pro to, jaké technologie prostě podporovat. Aby jsme tady nepodporovali pořád měkké projekty, protože jako zástupce samosprávy vidím, že obecně o školení a tyhle ty věci není příliš velký zájem. Ty úředníci potřebují taky vykonávat nějakou svoji samosprávnou činnost v rámci samostatné přenesené působnosti a nemá úplně obecně velký smysl, aby jezdili permanentně na školení, ale aby ty prostředky šly třeba na podporu takovýchhle projektů. Samozřejmě, co je pro nás důležité, je ta komunikace s tím občanem. A proto teď podáváme 2 žádosti, každou zhruba na 30 milionů korun na nové ICT technologie, kdy právě chceme udělat třeba elektronickou úřední desku, aby podání aby občan nemusel chodit fyzicky na úřad, ale by mohl elektronicky podat pouze určité věci. Vytvořit prostě na to takovou platformu, která by tomu občanovi obecně zjednodušila tu komunikaci s tou samosprávou. Takže, jak jsem říkal, v rámci je to v rámci IROPu, výzva 26, tuším a 28, na obecně podporu jakoby takzvaného e-governmentu. Takže já zase musím říct, že ty programy tady jsou, akorát, že co já považuji za poměrně velkou chybu je, že v rámci přístupu k Smart City samospráv je strašně mizivý. Prostě obecně starostové mají tolik svojí práce, že si myslím, že postavit všechno jenom jako na ekologii úplně nejde. Ona ta samospráva potřebuje taky nějaké finanční prostředky pro to, aby to pro ní bylo motivační. A to je podle mě úloha toho státu. Aby vytvářel takové programy, o kterých se bude jednoduše žádat. Protože pro nás několikrát ty výzvy jsou tak nesrozumitelné, že jenom díky tomu, že prostě už dneska se okolo nás ví a hodně řekl bych, institucí nás kontaktuje, jestli bychom třeba o to neměli zájem, aby jsme se vůbec do této výzvy přihlásili. Ty výzvy obecně jsou řekl bych, ty žádosti nejsou, nebo jejich tak málo, že vůbec ty dotační prostředky, které dneska v těch výzvách jsou, takže vůbec nejsou ani vyčerpávány. Je to strašně komplikované. Obecně koncept Smart Cities je bych řekl, málo dle mého názoru obecně tím státním sektorem podporován. To je můj pohled.
Thank you. So we have some 20 minutes left. We'll take a couple of questions more. Please, yes.
Hello, my name is Erika Horanska. I'm from the Ministry of Transport, Construction and Regional Development. And I would like to ask the panelists for advice. And to be more specific, I have to provide you some background. We are at the moment in the phase of finalizing the draft of the first urban policy for Slovakia. This is, it's called policy. What we mean is not to say to the cities what to do, but to assist them. So this is the goal, and to do it in more systematic way. I very much agree with Mr. Miklos that we as the public sector, we have our homework and we have to start to talk far more in between different sectors. At the beginning of preparation of the policy, we did a questionnaire or the survey among Slovak cities, and we covered about 90% of Slovak cities. And I must say that the climate change was at the very bottom of their priorities. The least important thing was economic development. So if you combine these two, it says that Slovak cities are not interested at all in economic development, and green economy is something beyond their imagination. Anyhow, it's, of course, I don't want to be very rude and cynical, because we understand they have very pragmatic problems, everyday problems to solve, and the gap between their very pragmatic needs and those very clever concepts, the gap is huge. So my question is, what would you advise us as policymakers, how to assist the cities to make this mental change, to accept the idea that transformation towards green economy is possible? Thank you.
Thank you. And I don't see any more questions from the auditorium, so I'll add one more from Slido. Mr. Stoll already talked about cooperation between one specific type of companies, developers and municipalities. The question here asks about expectations of the local municipalities from industry, or let's say what the industry in the urban area could do for green development in the city, because it is an important part in many cities, large industrial estates, companies. So on one hand, they offer jobs which are important for city. On the other hand, they could be a source of environmental risks or damages. And also, because we have only 15 minutes left, I would ask you to take it as a space for your concluding remarks. I think we can start in a reverse order, so starting with Mr. Knott and then...
Já už jsem o tom mluvil. Já si myslím, že třeba konkrétně město Písek je na velmi dobré ekonomické úrovni. Jak už jsem hovořil, naše nezaměstnanost dneska je zhruba kolem 3%, což je nezaměstnanost přirozená ve městě Písku paradoxně. Jak říkám, s podnikateli velmi úzce komunikujeme. Na druhou stranu, jak jsem už říkal, není úplně podle mě pro nás zásadním způsobem žádoucí, aby do Písku zasidlovali další montovny. Řeknu to úplně na rovinu. To, co my bychom prostě žádali, po jaké pracovní síle, nebo respektive po jakých investorech, si myslím, že by byl ve městě Písku zájem, jsou firmy s vyšší přidanou hodnotou. To znamená IT společnosti a podobně. V současné době se nám podařilo udělat další obrovský projekt, první technologické centrum, investice zhruba za 500 miliardy korun, přičemž Ministerstvo průmyslu a obchodu ho dotovalo asi 250 miliony korunama a teď se podařilo vybudovat zhruba, já říkám, takový TCP2, takový klon, který stál opět zhruba 500 miliardy korun a je to centrum energeticky efektivních budov. Je to velmi zajímavá technologie, kde ten objekt má svoje větrníky, má svoji obrovskou baterii, takže celkově ten dům je naprosto energeticky soběstačný a my máme možnost díky tomu třeba do Písku vozit, ukazovat takovéhle nějaké zajímavé koncepty pro různé investory a podobně. Ale já možná ještě bych řekl jednu věc, která jsem hodně zvědavý na spolupráci, která teď se zrovna kolem nás tvoří, a to je, budeme podávat žádost do Horizon 2020 ve spolupráci s norským Trondheimem a italskou Padovou, kde by město Písek se stalo takzvaným fallouverem. A já jsem hodně zvědavý, jak vlastně, a to trošičku navazuju na ten dotaz, který tady zazněl jako úplně první, jak vlastně je schopná, jak jsou schopny evropské municipality spolu komunikovat a zároveň se vyměňovat zkušenosti a ty zkušenosti samozřejmě se můžou týkat i těch ekonomických záležitostí. Pro mě to bude obrovská výzva a jsem zvědavý, jak celý Horizon vlastně funguje, protože budeme po Praze druhé město, pokud nám teda Evropská komise tento projekt přidělí, které v České republice bude vstupovat do nějakých, řekl bych, větších mezinárodních vztahů. Každopádně uvidíme 23. letím do Bruselu a 5. října do Trondheimu takovou věc dojednávat. Tak uvidíme, jak to bude vypadat a třeba vám za čtvrt roku řeknu, jakým způsobem může kooperovat samospráva i na základě nejenom jakoby požadavků samosprávy, ale i na základě ekonomických věcí.
Thank you. Mr. Stoll?
Okay, so basically, I think we can go for examples to some of the cities in the world which are really well functioning, whether it's PSEG or ESPO or maybe Copenhagen, where we spent 10 days last year. We were at a workshop at Kiel Architects who work on public spaces and focus on these issues. In the course of our workshop there, we met with municipal leadership in Copenhagen and had amazing discussions with them. If I compare the situation in Copenhagen with our situation, we can see both the practical results, how the Copenhagen is functioning, how the streets are done, how the bicycles are supplementing the problem which was there even 20 years ago with traffic congestion. And on the other hand, we see a very flexible, small team of professional people, open-minded, versus sort of bureaucratic apparatus that we have to face here. So I need to be a little bit critical towards this end as well. We would welcome much better communication with the city, with the municipality, and with regional and national government as well, because we have themes which go across the nation.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Miklos?
So I don't have advice on all of your questions. You had very, very good remarks on all of the issues. What I can say from my perspective, or from the perspective I raised, first of all, we have good legislation. I compared our legislation to many of other countries, let's say Germany and the Netherlands and others. We have good legislation. So the first advice is it would be good to accept all the provisions of the legislation and don't adopt the exception from that. Let's say exception from the protection of the soils. No, everywhere we have exceptions from the soils are protected, but there are possible exceptions. Also the best soils could be built up. Yeah, and so don't go to exceptions. And other things generally try to apply the green solutions. Green solution, let's say territorial system of ecological stability and landscape ecological planning professionally, because it is not always true that these concepts are adopted professionally. Otherwise, your remarks were very good, and then probably we can follow the conversation afterwards.
Thank you, Mr. Easton.
I would recommend that you speak to some of the cities that have had similar issues as this. Copenhagen was one. A key clay member had very similar issues, as that the citizens weren't interested in climate change. This is a long time ago. They went through a process of education, raising awareness. They could see citizens could see some of the impacts of climate change. So the city did raise the awareness and said, look, these are going to be the impacts. If we don't do something now, this is what's going to happen in 10, 20 years. And they took some risks for putting in cycle lanes. 20 years ago, they took quite big risks and they didn't know what the impact was, but the citizens soon came round. It's very common that around Europe that climate change isn't on the top of the agenda. People still think it's going to mean increased taxes. But what we do as ICLE is that we facilitate exchanges between cities. We have this problem, approach this problem almost on a weekly basis. So we align cities that have gone through this with cities that are starting out. I think you have to involve citizens. I say it's beyond the participatory process, not just telling them what's happening and asking their thoughts. They need to help co-lead the solutions. And I think there is a small group of citizens, once they get involved, then act as good case studies. They speak on behalf of the city to show this works. One of the problems with certainly with populism at the moment is that there are many people against many issues and politicians. There is a lack of trust. And politicians do have to come down and they have to make these decisions now. And I think it is changing the attitude. I think what will happen is in 5 or 10 years' time, when climate change really starts to impact, citizens are then going to start saying, well, why didn't politicians do something 10 years ago? So, and I think this has to come across through education, training, and working with the different stakeholders.
Thank you. Mr. Misiga?
Yes, I would add to what Mark mentioned. I think that you could try to identify a few cities that actually are able to implement such projects. I know that it may be difficult, but maybe you can look at the networks that exist, like Covenant of Mayors, Mayors Adapt, and other networks. So, and you identify cities like Pisek, you help them to implement the projects that are kind of demonstration projects, lighthouse projects that may attract other cities to do the same, and provide also reputational rewards to those, because cities learn from each other. Mayors meet and speak about their work, and if they see that there is a city that succeeded in an interesting project and benefits from that project, others hopefully want to repeat it. So I hope that you will be able to identify a few cities in Slovakia and support them, and that this will help to mainstream then such solutions.
Thank you, and Ms. Herta.
Thank you for your excellent question. It was very good to ask that from us. My answer is simple. I have two ways to continue. First of all, you have to begin the bottom-up policy. So you have to get your climate change issues up to your urban agenda. And we have done that in Espoo, so that we decided to make a climate program. We have a climate program, and that includes almost everything, because if you have a climate program, how to avoid climate change, you have to discuss about flooding and public transport and city plans and education and everything. So you can include everything to that climate program. And the second way is to begin a horizontal cooperation. You have to work with your citizens, as you have heard many times, with companies, with non-governmental organizations, with administration, with everyone, because it's the only way. But you have to organize. It's not enough if you once send a letter and please come and let's have a meeting and discuss about climate change and urban agenda. It's not enough, but you have a change in your organization, and maybe it's a good beginning. And I want to answer also that the question, what are your concrete proposals for better cooperation between central and local governments towards a green economy? And I want to say that it's listening and learning. If we listen each other, central level and local level, and we learn each other, we can get good results, because we at local level, we are experts. We know how to organize healthcare, education, public transport and everything. And if we can find a way to work together, we can get good results. And I want to thank all these speakers and audience. It has been very interesting and very active seminar, panel discussion, and I am happy that I have been here and I have learned a lot to take with me to Finland.
Thank you. Our time is nearly up, but before we finish, I would also like to thank to an important member of our panel. Well, you haven't seen her, Ms. Dana Švihlova from the Matej Bel University. She was not participating in the discussion, but she has an important and I would say challenging role of writing conclusions from what we were saying. So I had my personal, let's say, goal from this panel to answer the question what it makes some cities or municipalities to succeed in development of green economy when the others clearly fail or do nothing? Is it a good strategic political leadership? Is it a structure of local economy? Is it available finance? Is it active civil society? I think we had actually found out that it's a lucky mixture of all of this. At the same time, we could and we have to help our luck. Otherwise, we would just, leave it to luck itself, which is not a good strategy, I think. So thank you for your participation in the panel. Thank you for your presentations and for answering questions. Thank you for your questions. Also, I would like to invite you to, I think, the last panel discussion, which will take place after 30 minutes. Thank you.